Graze Craze is unique. It's the first in the space that is really breaking through in the catering side of the business to do something that nobody else has done before. We've got the infrastructure, we got the system, we know how to build a brand, but we're pioneering something that nobody's given us a game plan or a roadmap for.
Right.
But if you know I've got your back and I know you've got mine, then we'll be able to plow through this. My son, one day I remember he said, today's Saturday. It means we get to spend all day together. The light bulb comes on. I'm like, he's craving it, right? Yeah. And I think the worst thing you do is you catch yourself in the middle of an email at 7:30. It's like, that email, it can probably wait.
Welcome to the Biz Life Podcast. I'm Donnie Bedore, your host. We're here to talk about the business life, not the busy life. So I am obviously out of studio. We're in Nash Vegas, or some call it Nash Vegas. It's Nashville, Tennessee, at a World Expo with United Franchise Group, Starpoint Brands. And I have an amazing guest here for you today. It's our brand president for Graze Craze, Cory Hibbard. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Donnie. It's great to be with you.
Yeah. So I always like to start off the podcast, introducing the guests, letting you give us all your accolades and, everything about you. So where'd you come from, who you are, and all that?
Yeah, so I'm a South Jersey transplant, grew up in New Jersey, a little east of Philadelphia, made my way down to West Palm Beach for school, fell in love with the palm trees, fell in love with a girl, and the rest was kind of history. So
I love it.
You fast forward some of that up to November 2014, and I jumped in with United Franchise Group here. So I got into franchise development from the sales and lead generation side, spent a couple months in there, and an opportunity opened up as one of the first hires with Transworld Business Advisors, which was kind of this young and emerging up-and-coming brand at the time, which, of course, now you look back on it, it's the largest business brokerage firm in the world. But I spent 8.5 years with Transworld doing a little bit of everything, using my marketing degree and operations, technology, field support. Spent the last 5.5 as the director and vice president of operations. And in November of 22, something about Novembers, but November of 22, jumped in as the president of Graze Craze. And as you know, it's been just an absolute rocket ship ever since.
So wife, right? No kids, what do you got?
Yep, married to my wife, Brooke. It'll be 10 years in October, and we've got a 4-year-old Wyatt and a 2-year-old Nora, and they are, 4 and 2. Yeah, we're having a blast, but they can run circles around me at this point. So it's a really fun stage, and really blessed to have awesome family and beautiful and healthy kids, and it's a fun season of life for sure.
Very cool. Well, the podcast is dedicated to entrepreneurs, business owners, people that own their own business, own multiple businesses, all different levels. And really, we want to just give them inspiration and education, a little bit of edutainment as well too. And so, listen, if you're watching or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, we appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like, thumbs up, share, hit that bell for notification. It'd really help the algorithm and grow the channel. So what I'd like to do is dive in. Graze Craze. And not necessarily to make this a big, infomercial about Graze Craze, right? But I think a lot of, what I have learned in business is, if you're selling charcuterie boards, if you're selling martial arts, if you're painting houses, putting on roofs, whatever it is, there's a lot of business principles that interchange, right? And so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, you were early on into developing the brand of Graze Craze. Yeah. I know we had opened up before you came on as president. But what are the key factors that, as you're coming in, if you think back a couple years ago when you're coming in, what are a couple key factors that you were focused on coming in being the new brand president?
I think I came in from an interesting angle, right? Yeah. Because I was operations focused. Normally you see people as they get into the executive leadership side, they take a lot of time through the sales side of the business. And I got to kind of attack it from a different angle. I had seen kind of the rapid growth with Transworld as we had built and grown that. And, I think as I came into Graze Craze, it was really important first and foremost that, foundational success has to be in place before you worry about the scale. We had already been very fortunate to get a lot of interest and sell a lot of territories and have a lot of opportunity to still continue to do that. But For me, the first and foremost priority was making sure that our foundation was rock solid. So it was spending a lot of time with the franchisees that had helped us pioneer this business. I mean, Graze Craze is unique. It's the first in the space that is really breaking through in the catering side of the business to do something that nobody else has done before. So in that, we had to make sure that our pioneer partners were wildly successful and profitable in the business before we got to, what was next. I think it's really easy to get excited about the numbers and the growth, and that stuff is amazing. Like I can't downplay that, but if your founding partners aren't all in and they're not wildly successful, then you're building on sinking sand, right? Yeah. So for us, and for me in particular, it was, I don't need to make suggestions. I don't need to bring in these big ideas. That's not why they asked me to jump into this role. I need to make sure that we've got trust and relationships as we move this brand forward. Yeah. Because if we've got that, we can build something special together. Yeah. So for me, it was really about let's just go sit down and listen. I mean, I think I came out and I sat down with you very early on, and you and me and Sel sat down at the table and we just said,
"Yep,
give me the skinny."
Yeah. Remember that dinner, and one thing that really stuck out to me is again just the way you approached that, right? And you were pulling information out, but then at the very end, you're like, okay. Now that we've talked about all that, we've talked about some issues or whatever, what else am I missing? What are we missing, right? And I really appreciated that, right? Not that I really had an answer for that, but just that, hey, as a leader, knowing that, the people that you're over, the field that you have, right? There may be some good nuggets that you can pull out of them whenever you're meeting with them.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's one of these things that one thing I've learned, I've instilled this in everybody on the team, and hopefully this has come through as you've dealt with more and more of our support team members too. I've told everybody from the jump, you can be really good at your job or you can be really good with people. Yeah. But I can guarantee you the latter buys you time for the former. But if you're great at the former, you may never get to be at the point with the latter. And, people will give you miles of grace if they trust you and they believe that you've got their best interests in mind and they know you have their back thick and thin. And I think it was really important from the top down to just kind of instill, hey, we're figuring some of this stuff out together, right? Yeah. Like we've got the infrastructure, we got the system, we know how to build a brand, but we're pioneering something that nobody's given us a game plan or a roadmap for. Right. But if I've got your back and I know you've got mine, then we'll be able to plow through this and we'll be able to do something probably more special than I think either of us even know, even at this point, as excited and optimistic and, incredible as this business has been. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised by it as it continues to grow. Yeah.
No, I agree. Talking about that, right? Let's dive into that, right? How do you build that trust, right, with a team? And maybe, someone's, watching or listening and, they're in a new position at the job or of this business, right? Or they're just developing the team, right? What are some tips that you can give that person to build that trust with, I hate saying people underneath you, right? But, your team.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we talked about this a little bit yesterday when I opened our sessions, but great leaders create great results. There's never a brand or a company or something that's performing well that isn't led by great leadership. And some of the greatest leadership attributes that I've ever noticed in people that have led me and mentored me through the years is they're great listeners. Like I know it's cliche that God gives you two ears and a mouth, right? But I've personally felt that, when I know that people are hearing me, when they're reiterating things or talking through things that I've brought up or maybe concerns that I've voiced, and you feel like you got an advocate, you got somebody in your corner, right? So if you can use that to build trust, you don't need to talk much in order to lead well. And and I've tried to be better and better about. Look, I grew up in New Jersey. I can talk a million miles a minute, right? Like it's hard for me to slow down, right? But in that, I've had to be really conscious that when I sit down, people don't always need my opinion, and unfortunately, as a New Jersey native, it's in my blood to give my opinions. It's hard to hold them back sometimes. Sure. But in that, the more consciously and actively you work on that, I think the more people trust you, and the more people trust you, the more you can get done together. Yeah. In my early days in business, I worked in an RV dealership, and I really had, throughout that time, I had two presidents during that time. The first president, I always called him the buzzard.
He'd come in, caulk and squawk, and just gripe people out, we need to do this. All right. And then he'd leave and you wouldn't see him for a month. Right. And then you knew exactly the way the 2 hours was going to be whenever he showed up. You just knew it. Right. So you just prepared for it, knew it. Okay, whatever, and go. And the second leader that had come in, the second president, totally different. Right. And you remind me a lot of the second for sure. It's just coming in and supporting first. Right. Support first and then, challenge later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we all need to be challenged. Right. But having that support up front, I think really helps build trust. What do you think?
Ready to boost your business's impact? Fully Promoted Fort Worth is your one-stop destination for branding needs, specializing in branded apparel and promotional products. They help attract, retain, and engage customers. From custom uniforms to eye-catching items, Fully Promoted Fort Worth has you covered. Contact them today to unlock your brand's potential. 817-803-4404. Fully Promoted, your success, their passion.
Looking to elevate your office meetings, client gifting, or corporate parties? Check out Graze Craze, your one-stop destination for delightful catering options. Imagine impressing your colleagues and clients with our large charcuterie board, carefully curated with the finest artisanal cheeses, premium meats, and an array of accompaniments. And when it comes to client gifting, nothing says thank you quite like a luxurious selection of gourmet treats designed to meet your every need. Graze Craze, catering that leaves a lasting impression.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think, again, some of that may be the ops background that I come from, and leaning into that and understanding the importance of measuring twice and cutting once. But yeah, if you know that you can take calculated risks and even if they don't go well, I remember early on, good buddy of mine, Jason Anderson, is the president of VAST and our co-working brands at United Franchise Group. And I remember he came in and he was out in the sales field and then he came into kind of management and executive leadership about the time that I came into United Franchise Group, and we kind of struck up a friendship. And I remember him telling me, for every great idea that you've heard I came up with, I've failed 10 times in the dark, but you just keep moving forward. And if you know that somebody's not going to lambaste you for making that one mistake and they know that you're going to keep pushing forward until you get the result, I think it just gives you freedom to be able to just keep moving forward quicker instead of looking over your shoulder about who's going to be bothered by what. So, you want to create some trust. Give your team some freedom to fail. Like you gotta be able to fail forward, and that can't happen if everybody's so worried about being, chastised over one misstep.
Right. We do have a shorter segment, this segment, but I want to go into again. So you want to build the trust and then the challenging part, right? Because every team needs to be challenged, right? Your workers need to be challenged, right? For instance, Graze Craze, those that are building the boards, right? They're going to get challenged at certain times of the year, right? Q4 and all that stuff. But what is a good way? How do you like going about challenging performance? Yeah, how do you like to challenge that?
Yeah, look, I think you got to give grace, but you've got to hold a hard line. I think I'm really fortunate to be able to lead in an organization that's very fast-paced, direct, and straight to the point because it's pretty on brand, I think. I think even if people come from other departments or work with a team, they understand we're going to correct something quick, but we're also going to move on. We're never going to bring it up again. Let's just keep moving forward. We don't have time to dwell in what was right or what was wrong. Let's just keep it moving forward. Right. So I think I really appreciate I was kind of managed that way as I came up through the company. And in that, it just feels natural for me to do the same with my team. When I first sat down with them and said, look, obviously I'm new to the charcuterie business. I've been helping people sell businesses and do mergers and acquisitions all over the world. Now all of a sudden I'm in a food business, right?
Now you're the charcuterie king.
Yeah, exactly. and I had to kind of sit down and level set and say, each and every one of you knows more about this business than I do. And I am hyper aware of that. I do not think I can outsmart you in this business in any stretch, nor do I ever want to. I want you to all be better and wiser and more accomplished and more skilled than I am in what you do. But we're going to move quick. And we have to move quick because our franchisees need us to move quick, So in that, I kind of set the expectations early on that if something's out of line, we're not going to tiptoe around it. You're going to know immediately, but as soon as we address it, you're never going to hear from me again on it. You're not going to hear in a mid-year review. You're not going to hear about it in a performance appraisal. We're not going to dangle it over your head. Like I said, you got to be able to fail in order to be able to do well. Right. So in it, I try to be really good about setting the expectations that we're going to address it, we're going to move on, and then you got to build some lines of communication where they can come to you when things are going a little sideways. You can't have a team that's so scared to bring something up as it's bubbling up, because if we can catch it early on,
it's good
we
advice.
can squash it. But if they don't feel like they have a line of communication, you end up dealing with much bigger problems down the road than if you could just build some trust.
I love it. I love it. All right, so tough question for you. What's the worst thing that you've ever done? So this is the end of the podcast. Usually those that are listening are typically my wife or your wife, right? And so what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, something like that?
Oh man, that's a deep one. I think the worst thing that I've probably done, and maybe this is just fresh because it's recent memory, I think there's such a threat to young children right now as a father to be so distracted by all the outside noise. And it's something that you're constantly battling. Like I've got to get home, and look, like I leave early and I get home late some nights, and I've got an hour or two before they go to bed. And I think the thing I'm always most convicted by is, did I do enough today to give them the attention that they need? Because I only get these short glimpses during the week. When my son, one day I remember he said, today's Saturday. It means we get to spend all day together. The light bulb comes on of like, he's craving it, right? And I think the worst thing you do is you catch yourself in the middle of an email at 7:30. It's like, that email, it can probably wait. You know what I mean? And that's not dismissive to the support side of the business. We try to be hyper present, take care of everybody, but that email could have waited till 8:30 or 9 when he was in bed. And I think, that's maybe the most convicting, I would say, of recent memory. But I'm sure there's tons of things, right? I was a teenage boy. I did all sorts of stupid stuff. But
true story.
But I think as a recent memory, it's just not being as present as you need to be, because I go into the office and I'm very focused on being present. And it's like, why is it so easy to put the more important stuff in my life on the back burner sometimes? But you just solid. Another thing you got to work at.
That's solid, man.
Thankful for grace. That's what I'm thankful for.
True story. Well, hey, thank y'all for watching the Biz Life Podcast. Man, super excited on the guest that we're going to have coming up in the next episode. So please stay tuned. Make sure you like, subscribe, share out. We'll see you next time on the Biz Life.